It's about the I got to say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Gets the ball, gets back, pulls up for the win. Got it! Detroit basketball. Oh, Holloman looks the clock. Half court for the win. Oh! The Lions go for it. The Vikings bring it. He's a pass. It's a touchdown to give.
Javi Baez homered earlier. First one in the air, deep left field again. Yes, Tigers win. Javi is unstoppable.
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. Welcome one, welcome all. We got a great show. We got a really great show, actually. I know I say that every time, but look, the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, so they got their revenge for not handing the ball off to Marshawn, I guess. That's got to feel good, right? And hello, Detroit fan. Good to see you here in the chat. This is what he is guessing the topics of the show are going to be. So let's see. Seahawks win the Super Bowl. That's going to be one. Yes. MSU basketball redemption. Not really going to talk MSU hoops right now. And K9 MVP. Thank you, Mr. X. Pistons Hornets brawl. Isaiah Stewart suspension. Has he been suspended yet? Has that actually been announced? I haven't seen that. I know the Pistons play tomorrow. They got Toronto before the All-Star break. And then the Tigers signed Valdez and Verlander. And I will talk about that as well. Though I think I don't know if maybe I am just on my negative Nancy arc with this team, but we'll get into it. But obviously, yes, K9 MVP, Super Bowl MVP. That puts Michigan State as having an MVP and a championship game in the professional leagues in every league except for, I think, baseball. I think that's correct because they had Duncan Keith win the Conn Smythe. They had obviously Kenneth Walker winning Super Bowl MVP. And then in basketball, Magic Johnson has won Finals MVP. So we got a lot going for us as far as Finals MVPs. You know, it's a good thing Michigan State really won a whole lot with Kenneth Walker as their running back, right? Also, it just goes to show just how much of a snub he was for not winning the Heisman the year. It's absolutely ridiculous. He was far and away the best running back in the league, and the fact that he wasn't even brought, or the best running back in college football, the fact that they never actually gave it to him is just ridiculous. Yeah, but Kirk Gibson didn't even play baseball for Michigan State. He played football. So it's like, but maybe, did he play baseball at all? He's more known for football at Michigan State. He was a receiver. He's got his number retired in the rafters at Spartan Stadium, which is a weird thing. Anyway. It's great for us Spartan fans. K9 got the MVP, and Behringer punted well for the Patriots. So true. Michigan State athletes really showing out. But okay, let's talk about the Super Bowl because Seahawks get the win. Congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks. Another Super Bowl win for them. What is that? Their third? No, their second. They had their first against the Denver Broncos a little over a decade ago, and then they've lost two. So that puts them at what, 2-2 in the Super Bowl, which is pretty good. Look, as a fan of a team that is 0-0, the Seahawks are just a high tier organization in the NFL. I knew that regardless of who would win, it was going to be a team that missed the playoffs that wins the Super Bowl. But the fact that the Seahawks went from missing the playoffs to winning the Super Bowl with a new quarterback is incredibly impressive. So hats off to them. I know I have my hat on. I'm not going to take my hat off. You get the expression. The game itself was a snooze fest. There's really, if you want me to break this game down, I'm sorry. Seahawks good, New England not as good. The Seahawks defense was completely dominant. Drake May got sacked, I think, 100 times. That offensive line looked terrible. They had, multiple? I think it was 3 total turnovers, where one of them went for a touchdown with the scoop and score in the fourth quarter. The game got a little interesting when New England scored their first touchdown in the fourth quarter. I thought maybe they could kind of mount a comeback. But yeah, basically, my whole takeaway on all of this is if you have a really good defense, you're just going to suffocate your opponent. And Seattle did. Their defense, the dark side, as they were calling it, Certainly going to go down as one of the best defenses in NFL history. They completely did. It was a pick six. I thought that was technically a pick six. It was a scoop and score because it was a sack fumble and then he picked it up. There was an interception, but it didn't go for a touchdown. Maybe he threw it and then caught it and it looked like a scoop and score. Anyhow, Kenneth Walker wins Super Bowl MVP. Shout out him, former Michigan State Spartan, and probably the last time I ever had fun watching Michigan State football. So here's my takeaway, though, from a Lions perspective. Okay. So I got some stats for you. Okay. All right. Now get ready for it. So Sam Darnold this year, he was really good quarterback. Okay. He had a 68% completion percentage. He had 4,500 passing yards. He had 268.5 yards per game. He had 34 passing touchdowns, just 8 interceptions, a 105.5 rating. You know, he was a Pro Bowler. And no, wait a minute. You're probably thinking, wait a minute. No, that's actually Jared Goff's stats. Sam Darnold, actually, he had just 4,000 total passing yards, 4,048 to be exact. He had just 238 passing yards per game, 25 passing touchdowns to 14 picks, and a 99.1 rating. Now, granted, he did have 35 more rush attempts and 95 rushing yards with an average of 2.7 yards per rush. But here's what I'll say about this. What this reveals to me is that if that quarterback can win a Super Bowl, I don't want to hear anything from Lions fans saying that Jared Goff can't win a Super Bowl. Or NFL fans in general. Because if the quarterback who is objectively worse, right, with an objectively better situation, a way better defense and a way better offense in terms of offensive line, Sam Darnold won the Super Bowl. Jared Goff, in a much worse situation, had better numbers overall on the year than Sam Darnold. And he has had better numbers than Sam Darnold for the last 3 to 4 years. So, once again, if Sam Darnold can win the Super Bowl, then Jared Goff absolutely can win a Super Bowl. There is no world where any Lions fan or any non-Lions fan can sit here and tell me with a straight face that that Sam Darnold can win a Super Bowl, but Jared Goff can't. Especially when the very year prior, Jared Goff went 2-0 against Sam Darnold. So, of course, this is not a disrespect against Sam Darnold. He has really turned himself into one of the top quarterbacks in this league. But if he's one of the top and he just won a Super Bowl, and Jared Goff, I think it's not an unfair thing to say he's also one of the top quarterbacks, then he absolutely can win a Super Bowl. And if the only hang-up is that Sam Darnold's 28 and Jared Goff is 31, well, Matthew Stafford was a whole lot older than 31 when he won his first Super Bowl. So once again, if your hang-up is age or play style, all three of those quarterbacks play pretty much the exact same way. Stafford probably has the deepest arm of all three of them, but you get my point. They're not, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or even Joe Burrow, for that matter. But no one says that, and now you can't say that Sam Darnold can't win you a Super Bowl because he just did. And once again, if Sam Darnold can do it, then any quarterback that isn't completely terrible can do it. Basically, if you are Sam Darnold's quality of year, if you can have at least 25 passing touchdowns, if you can limit yourself to 14 picks, if you can get to around an 100 quarterback rating, you can win the Super Bowl. Now, to countermeasure what I know some people will say is, well, Sam Darnold didn't just will them to the Super Bowl. He didn't even win Super Bowl MVP. Very true. So why did they win the Super Bowl, you may be asking? Well, I'm so glad you asked. They won it because they had a really good defense. They won it because they had an elite defense. And if we're being honest with ourselves, they won it because the AFC was very weak this year. Mahomes goes down with injury and the Chiefs were a complete mess all year. Lamar Jackson missed the playoffs and Josh Allen pooped his pants once again in the playoffs. What do you want from me? And the Broncos lost their starting quarterback, resulting in an easy win for New England to go in to Denver and just suffocate them because there was no way that Jarrett Stidham was ever going to beat the Patriots that game. So even with all of that said, they won that game because Sam Darnold had an amazing defense that set him up for, like, he didn't exactly play in a lights out game. You can go up and pull up the stats. So if you got to win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold, you need an elite defense, one of the top defenses of all time. And we know that Jared Goff is better than Sam Darnold. Well, then that means you don't need the elite defense. You don't need the 85 Bears, or I guess the 2025 Seahawks. You need a good defense, a very good defense even. But you don't need the most elite defense ever. Now, it's not an excuse to not go out and make your defense elite. Of course, having an elite defense is always going to help you. But this tells me that, okay, if Jared Goff is better than Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold needs the elite defense to win, then Jared Goff needs a slightly less elite defense to be able to win, right? Like, that's just, that makes sense, right? On all of that, on that note, I wanted to try to spin this in somewhat of a Lions way, because I know that as Lions fans, I don't think we really care that the Seahawks beat the Patriots. But I think it revealed something. And it revealed that the world of the you can't win with X quarterback, short of X quarterback being completely below league average to barely a starter, is just a complete myth. Because I am old enough to remember when 3 years ago, if somebody would have said you can win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold, they would have laughed you out of the room. And they would have been right to laugh you out of the room. But if you can win it with Sam Darnold, you can win it with Jared Goff. That's it. That is basically that was my takeaway. And it made me feel good in that regard. And it was also very funny to watch as Vikings fans saw the quarterback that they gave no chance to come back and be their quarterback of the future, go out and win a Super Bowl in the very first year. That would never happen to us, right? Like, we'd never have a quarterback go out and win a Super Bowl in his first year with a new team, right? Yeah. Well, at the very least, at least we traded and we managed we got our own quarterback from that. So anyway, that's my Lions takeaway. It was a great NFL season overall. Obviously, it wasn't great for the Lions missing the playoffs and finishing in last place in the division, but it was a weird year. And I suspect that given the way the Seahawks went from a non-playoff team to a Super Bowl winning team, I think that's going to really electrify this Lions front office to go out and do something. You know, if Seattle can do it, and we got a better quarterback and we got better playmakers on offense, why can't we? I realize I left my water far away from me, so now I got to walk and grab it. Okay. Got it. All right. Okay. All right. Lots to talk about. I was really happy with myself with this topic. It seems to have worked out. You guys are really enjoying it. So let's take a look. They called it a pick instead of a fumble. Really? I'll have to watch that play again. That's crazy. That's so weird. Let's see. I'm going through all these chats. Yeah, 1 year, which is actually how the Tigers noticed him. But yeah, okay, yes, I knew that he was a football guy. Utter domination from the Seahawks defense. Drake May was running around like Herbert has been all year. So true. So true. Yeah, Alessio Mufaletta is going to lead us to the national championship, I bet. This all shows that the Goff hater that we can win with him. Seahawks won with Sam Darnold, who isn't better than Goff because he plays smart, clean football. Absolutely. I'm glad that you and I, Mr. X, are on the same page on this. Absolutely. He was never the problem. It was always the defense. So true. What is crazy, too, is that Darnold and Goff play very similar. Both are smart pocket passers who don't run much. Goff just has better stats. And again, Sam Darnold was in a worse spot, or was in a better spot as far as offensive line protection. right? Like Sam Darnold had plenty of time in that pocket. He had a much better, more secure run game with Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker all year. And he had all that with a great defense setting up a good field position. You know, JSN is a very good player, obviously offensive player of the year. But I don't think anybody would be, I don't think it's a hot take to say the Lions probably have a better overall, set of weapons. But obviously with the lack of offensive line, the whole thing just falls apart. They also won because they had 20 touchdowns to 0 turnovers over the entire playoffs. And once again, that goes to smart football, right? I mean, in no world do people say Sam Darnold is a better quarterback overall than Josh Allen. But Josh Allen cost his team the postseason. Sam Darnold, if anything, helped that. Like, if Sam Darnold, if anything, he was part of the reason they were winning, right? Because he wasn't playing hero ball. He wasn't inexplicably fumbling the ball with 20 seconds left to give Denver a free 3 points. And other fun things that he did that. And his offense is basically on the same level as the Seahawks offense. Just comparing the two position to position, it's basically the same. Only problem is really health, I guess. And I'd say their offensive line was just better than ours. So, again, it's like you retool the offensive line, you add in free agency trades and the draft, you further develop guys like Ratledge, and maybe Mahogany comes back better in a better way. Even, with a guy like Glasgow, maybe you move him to a position where he's actually meant to be, as opposed to center, where he just not his natural position. You could fix the offensive line. You can do that actually a lot quicker than I think people think you can. It's not, teams do this all the time where they go 1 year, their offensive line stinks. And then, actually we just needed to insert this piece here, have a better scheme here, and everything kind of works out. At least our separation with Stafford was mutual. The Falcons threw Darnold away for 9. They had, in a certain sense, no other choice, but the problem wasn't letting your free agent quarterback who just had a career year ago for your top draft pick. The problem was drafting J.J. McCarthy. That was the problem. The problem was drafting the quarterback whose only success in college was due to his team cheating. Probably not the best option. And pretty much the only reason he left for the pros early was because he knew he would have gotten hammered by the NCAA. Just like all the other players on the team that left, and coaching staff, and et cetera. At least the Lions got a new quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end, and others from getting rid of our QB. Minnesota got nothing. It's JJ McFumble and Carson Wentz. Yeesh. What a terrible, terrible state of affairs for Minnesota. You hate to see it. Case in point on fixing the O-line. The Bears yes, exactly. The Bears went out and signed Jonah Jackson, who is not some superstar, but he was an improvement from whoever they had before. And it was also a scheme thing. John Morton's scheme was just not good. Plays took too long to develop. You saw it immediately with communication problems on the offensive line. That's not going to be good for a young rookie like Tate Ratledge, who's got to figure out what are his assignments. So I hope that with Petzing and the Kafka, I hope that their scheme is a lot simpler, both for plays to just develop quicker and also for any new players you bring in, whether it's, just in free agency or in trades where you bring in a veteran or you draft that next star O-lineman. You're going to need to make it easy for them. 49ers, when they got Brock Purdy, let go of Lance, who they traded. Well, that's fair. That's fair. Lance, though, that was, yeah. Brock Purdy, I guess you could say they also drafted him. So, I don't know. Played better than Lance ever did, and they realized they had to let Lance go. Yeah. Lance was also getting hurt. Yeah. If the Vikings had drafted Michael Penix and did what they did, I could at least be like, okay, I think that I could see if that didn't work out. All right, that sucks, but I would at least understand that mentality. J.J. McCarthy, even when he was in college, even in his best years when they were cheating their balls off, he was never this elite, amazing quarterback. Even Michigan slappies were saying, I don't think he really needs to go pro right now. he doesn't really pass the ball a whole lot. It's a run first offense that they ran in Michigan, and he was never really tasked with taking over the offense. Not to say that there's no role for that in the NFL, but frankly, that role is a lot more close to a backup slot than it is to a first round top of the draft caliber pick. So, yeah. It is still crazy to me that Brock Purdy went all that way. I mean, Trey Lance was just like a psyop. I'm convinced. It's like every year you have these quarterbacks, and it's like they're like guys who never played, or guys who like they played in some garbage conference where they beat up on like, the Little Sisters of the Poor, who have a really good team this year, by the way. But like, and then like they got in the NFL and they suck, and you're like, well, yeah, of course. Like they weren't good to begin with. It was like Anthony Richardson. I couldn't understand why anyone wanted to draft Anthony Richardson. I was like, well, hold on. He's playing in the SEC, which is one of the toughest conferences in college football. He's not winning in the SEC. If he's not winning in the SEC, he wasn't winning overall in college football. What makes you think he's going to win in the NFL? Like, it's bad when Daniel Jones, who was not a good quarterback, came into your team and immediately played way better than Anthony Richardson ever played. But because he can throw the ball really far, he gets drafted. Same with Zach Wilson. It's the same deal. It's like, okay, I mean, sure, you want to draft the guy out of BYU? You can do that, but he's playing nobody, and his claim to fame is throwing the ball very far on one knee. Well, newsflash for you, if you go down one knee, you're down. So, you're not really going to do a whole lot of one-legged throws in the NFL. But anyway. That's all the NFL I have in me. We can continue talking about it. We can continue chatting about it. But the NFL, we'll talk more NFL once the offseason really gets going. And hopefully the Lions really attack the offseason. I think they do need to have an attack first offseason. And look, that means all parts of the offseason. That includes the draft. It's not just, it's not just, free agents. I'm not saying they got to go out and sign every single free agent out there, but like, I wouldn't mind it. I guess I wouldn't mind if they signed every really good free agent, if it makes sense, and they have the money. What did I think of the halftime show? I didn't watch it, so that's what I thought of it. I switched over to the Kid Rock one because at least I knew who that was. I like the part where he said "bomb with the bone to bang, biggie biggie." I don't even like Kid Rock that much. I didn't want to watch the Bad Bunny. Where's Good Bunny? Was he available? That's what I don't understand. If we're going to bring in Bad Bunny, why don't we bring in Good Bunny? Going to be Red Wings and Pistons heavy with some Tigers sprinkled in, some Spring Rangers helmet. So true. So true. Anyway, speaking of, let's talk Tigers. So, big news of the past week. Usually what happens is I'll do a segment on a team, and then the very next day there's some massive news. And that's not exactly what happened with the Tigers, but last week, the Tigers announced they are signing Framber Valdez to a 3-year, $150 million deal. Now, before I really get into Framber Valdez and what this means for the team, Framber Valdez is a very good player. He's a two-time All-Star. He was a World Series champ a couple of years ago. This past year's 3.8 WAR, 3.66 ERA, 12.45 WHIP, almost 200 innings pitched. His ERA plus has always been above league average pretty much since like 2020. He's been above league average. Very, very solid pitcher. Less than 1 home run per 9 innings pitched. Only 3 walks per 9. Almost 9 strikeouts per 9. He's a very good pitcher. And granted, it's been a little bit since he was an all-star. Even just last year when he wasn't an all-star, he was 7th in Cy Young voting and finished 15th in MVP voting, which is amazing. But look, he's entering his 30s. He's probably on the downwards. Excuse me. He's probably on a little bit of the downward swing, but he's a hard-throwing lefty. He's going to make your pitching staff a lot better. Now, the other important news of the day was that Justin Verlander has been signed again by the Tigers. A 1-year deal, $13 million, which I think they're deferring like most of it, something like that. Like most of the money is deferred, which at least opens up your ability to say, hey, we can go out and make a trade at the deadline, or even furthermore, we can go out and sign some more free agents while we're at it. Like, okay, that works, right? Like, that's good. And I really like that they signed Justin Verlander because, frankly, from a nostalgia standpoint, I'm just happy that he's back. It always felt weird to me when he was playing on other teams, and he was on the Mets there for a bit, and then he was on the Giants, and it's just like, okay, I just bring him home. And I can pull up his numbers. There's obviously no world where Justin Verlander is what he was at his prime. There just isn't. But last year, he was fine. A 1.2 WAR. He pitched to a 3.85 ERA, 13.62 WHIP. It wasn't terrible. He hadn't been an all-star, though, in a few years. Not that means that much. But he's an above league average pitcher. Or at least he was last year with a 1.03 ERA. ERA plus, I should say. If he had a 1.03 ERA, that'd be bad. But Verlander, it is more than just nostalgia. He's very good. He's going to be very good for that room. He makes you better. He does not make you worse. And with the potential of not having Reese Olson at the start of the year, I would like to have a competent pitcher in there, and Justin Verlander does that for you. So, and frankly, you mix him with Chris Fetter, who is a very good pitching coach. He's shown an ability to kind of bring out the best out of some of these older pitchers. We saw it with Jack Flaherty a couple of years ago, and we've seen it with the development of Tarek Skubal, obviously. Now, do I think that Justin Verlander has a whole lot left in him? Probably not. There's a reason he signed a 1-year deal. Now, all of that being said, I think there's been a bit of a vibe shift in the narrative on this team. And I think it culminates in there is a serious contingent of people in the media and in the fans that are saying that now, with these signings, the Tigers are officially World Series contenders. And I just don't believe it. And maybe I am just a mean old man. Maybe I'm just a hater. But I am old enough to remember when in 15 grueling innings, this putrid, pathetic team of offense went out and scored a measly 2 runs. 2 runs. I'm old enough to remember that. I'm also old enough to remember this team collapsing a double-digit lead in the division, leading to a wild card series that should not have had to happen. All because the team has a offensive problem. And I've been saying it for like 4 years. I've probably been saying it for longer than that. And the only bat of any substance that Scott Harris has signed is Gleyber Torres. And as much as I like Gleyber Torres, he had a great year last year. He is not a needle mover. Okay? If he's on the team, great. If he's off the team, you're probably right where you are. Now, here's the thing. Your pitching staff is absolutely going to win you a lot of games. Tarek Skubal is elite. Framber Valdez is very good. And Justin Verlander is also very good. And Jack Flaherty has an ability to go on hot streaks. And you also got a guy like Casey Mize, who I thought had a very good season last year and certainly could develop into more of a much better role for him. I mean, he was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. But if your best hitter is Riley Green, who struck out a league leading, let me actually pull up the exact number. He struck out a league-leading 201 times. They play 162 games, folks. 201 strikeouts. That is putrid. That is unacceptable. And also just 46 walks for him there. I know that he was an all-star. I know that he was a silver slugger. But you can't strike out that much and be a terrifying threat in this league. You just can't. You need to have better plate discipline. And outside of him, who in this lineup is scaring anybody? Is it Javier Baez? Probably not. Is it Spencer Torkelson? Probably not. Is it Zach McKinstry? Shout out Silver Slugger. No, probably not. They had an opportunity to sign Alex Bregman. They didn't. They had an opportunity to sign Bo Bichette. They didn't. They had an opportunity to sign Eugenio Suarez. And they didn't. Now, they probably will be adding some pieces internally. I'd be shocked if either Max Clark or Kevin McGonigal weren't on the team at some point, right? I mean, if McGonigal or Clark make the team by opening day, that'd be fantastic. I think that would certainly add a jolt to, the sentiment of the team that, okay, we got these two new young, high caliber prospects that, were, the first product of the first draft by Scott Harris. He has praised these guys immensely. They've risen up the ranks. There was even talks about bringing up Kevin McGonigal last year, but obviously that didn't lead to anything. But you're putting a lot on the shoulders of these two young men to come in here and just will their way to being top tier offense. Like, let's assume that either McGonigal or Clark wins the Rookie of the Year. Are you now suddenly a terrifying offense? Probably not. Your third baseman, I cannot stress this enough. Your third baseman is Zach McKinstry. I don't care that he won a Silver Slugger. That's not a scary player. Okay? I like Zach McKinstry. He's fun. He went to Central Michigan. He's a utility guy. He can play a lot of positions. He was an all-star. I like him, okay? But it's kind of like Brandon Inge, where fans like him a lot more than the rest of the league fears him. So this team has an offense problem, and I've been saying it for literally since Scott Harris got here, at least, and probably much before. So unless or until Torkelson becomes Pete Alonso, unless or until Riley Green becomes Ken Griffey Jr., or unless or until Colt Keith becomes Derek Jeter, this offense will just not scare people. And don't, as much as I love Kerry Carpenter, if you can't hit against left-handed pitching, then you're just a utility guy. You're Kirk Gibson, okay? And that's fine. Kirk Gibson was a very good player, okay? But you're not understanding. If your answer to, well, our offense is good, look at Kerry Carpenter, you're not understanding the essence of the problem. There's not one singular bat that, as of right now, on February the 10th, in the year of our Lord, 2026, that any team looks at in a bottom of the ninth situation, man in scoring position, where they're like, oh my gosh, we're going to have our hearts broken. There's not one player. There's just not. And I know that's not an intangible, but that's baseball, man. If you're in a bottom of the ninth lineup, or if you're in the bottom of the ninth spot, and you got Juan Soto coming up, or you got Bobby Witt Jr., or Aaron Judge, or Shohei Ohtani, you're terrified. You're probably going to lose the game. But if you have Riley Green, if you have Spencer Torkelson, if you have Zach McKinstry or Gleyber Torres, you're probably not going to lose the game. So, as much as I'm happy about the upgrades in the pitching staff, and I do think this is going to be probably, if not the best, one of the top 3 or 4 pitching staffs in baseball going into this year with Skubal, Valdez, Verlander, Flaherty. I think that's very good. And Mize, that's a very good pitching staff. Your hitting is still not where I need it to be to feel confident in this team. Now, look, maybe they go out and Riley Green cuts the strikeouts in half and goes to being an elite outfielder defensively and offensively. Maybe Spencer Torkelson becomes Freddie Freeman. Okay, maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. That's a big ask. And I just would have preferred that some of the money spent on the Kenley Jansens of the world or the Drew Andersons of the world was spent in adding some bats. We'll see. Maybe the pitching staff will just carry this team and we'll just, ride a division title into the playoffs, and then you're 3 wins away from an ALCS. I'd love nothing more than to be wrong, but I don't know. The lack of hitters does not make me. The fact that the pitching is better does not make me feel much better when the lack of hitters has been the main problem. So. All right, let's take a look at some of the chat here. Welcome, Mikey. Welcome to the chat. We're talking some Tigers a little bit. Let's take a look here. 2024 Scooble versus Valdez game, wildcard game 1, 2026 Scooble and Valdez teammates. That's a good point. Good poll. Thank you, Detroit fan. Tigers bullpen looks really good for next year. Now we need to hope the hitters get fixed. Agree. I'm glad they brought back Kyle Finnegan. I thought he was probably the best trade deadline acquisition, so I'm glad they brought him back. He had a pretty good season for us. I know Verlander's old, but considering Olsen and Job are in recovery, they could use the extra guy. If anything, now the Tigers actually have replacements with injuries when they have them because they always do. I agree with that as well. Again, I'd rather see Justin Verlander than Cater Montero when Mize or Flaherty go down for sure. Scooble, Valdez, Flaherty, Verlander, Mize. Not a bad 5-man rotation. If performance issues or injuries, we have Job, Olsen, and Melton to throw in. Those three could be good relievers also. Agree totally. On paper, this Tigers team is very talented. Should be AL Central and AL contenders. However, that's on paper. I agree with you, AL Central. I'm not sure about AL overall because, again, the hitting is just the biggest concern for me. Tigers offense will be a limiting factor. The bullpen looks good, but we need offense as showed by our last playoff game. Yes. Take that Eagle shirt off. It's American Eagle. It's a clothing brand. I'm not an Eagles fan. Also, I'm not putting Dallas on. I'm not putting that garbage franchise down south on. You kidding me? Get out of here with that. I'm just playing with you. I mean, that's how I feel about Dallas, but it's not personal to you. You understand. Rangers are a good example of what the Tigers are falling to. Elite pitching, one of the best in the league, but hitting outside of maybe Corey Seager, Josh Young, or Wyatt Johnston, nothing. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, they got a World Series out of it, right? Like, they went all in. They got Corey Seager. They got Marcus Semien. They built some pitching around it, and they got one World Series. And that, you know what? For Rangers fans, they had never won a World Series. That's going to be they're going to remember that for the rest of their life. I don't have a World Series. I mean, the Tigers have won World Series in general, but I don't have one. Anyway, Wyatt Johnston, the guy Tigers passed on for Max Clark at 3. This is a huge thing, right? Like, if Max Clark is not better than Wyatt Johnston, that's going to be a major mark against Scott Harris's drafting, because this was his first pick, right? So let me just pull up Wyatt Johnston's number, or Wyatt Johnston. You mean Wyatt Langford? Not Wyatt Johnston. Wyatt Johnston's a hockey player. Wyatt Langford, okay, this past year with the Rangers, he was quite good. Okay, he had a 5.6 WAR, 241 batting average. That's not that amazing, but he had a 127 OPS plus. That's a 775 OPS. He had 62 RBIs, 22 home runs. Okay, that was his second year at age 23. You know, in his rookie year, he was 7th in Rookie of the Year voting, but he had close to a 4 Baseball Reference WAR. And ever since he started, he's been above league average hitter in terms of OPS plus. So, yeah, I'm gonna need Max Clark to come in and immediately be an above average hitter, or else I'm upset. Dallas is not winning the Super Bowl next year. I don't want to be mean, but they're not winning the Super Bowl. Not as long as Jerry Jones is their owner, they're not going to win a Super Bowl. For a second, I also thought it was a Philadelphia Eagles shirt as well. Now that you mention, I mean, I guess maybe if it's the old school, the darker green that they used to wear. That's a good point, though. Maybe I shouldn't wear this shirt. Nobody plays tonight. So normally I try to coordinate what I'm wearing on the show with what's going on in for that game tonight on that night. I only wore the Pistons hat because they're going to play tomorrow and because we got a Pistons segment. So with Johnson, because the Stars drafted him and picked the Red Wings. Wyatt Johnston was taken by the Stars before we took Sebastian Cossa, who still has not played a singular game as a Red Wing. Meanwhile, Wyatt Johnston is a very, very good player. I don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but yes. Yeah, you're confusing him with the other Wyatt that the Chris Ilitch owned professional sports team passed up on. It's weird that it happened twice. All right. Okay. So, final segment. Wanted to do a little bit of Pistons talk. So, obviously, much of the narrative right now is about the Charlotte Hornets game and the ejections and the fighting and all that. And I want to just see. We haven't gotten. I don't think there's been any. Oh. So we do have breaking news. Just in case. I don't know if it was mentioned in the chat. Where's my breaking news? Hold on. We got breaking news. Reese Olson will miss the 2026 season after undergoing right shoulder surgery. So that would probably explain the Justin Verlander sign. So that already throws that guy out. I don't know if that was mentioned in the chat. I just didn't notice. But yeah, Reese Olson is out for the season. So the Justin Verlander signing is all the more necessary. So I'm glad that Scott Harris did that. But that does make you worse because Reese Olson is one of the better pitchers in the league. Not an amazing pitcher, not a star by any means, but he makes you better. And losing him is going to hurt. So we'll see. Maybe we get more Troy Melton. Cater Montero, you're up. No. Hopefully not. Anyway, even though Cater would have some games, he'd go out there and give you some innings sometimes. But anyway, Jackson Jobe, he's probably not going to be playing for a good portion of the year either. I mean, he went down like about the midway point of last year, I believe. I think it was before, and he wasn't even playing all that well. So, either way, I guess those are your backup, but it is unfortunate to miss Reese Olson. But yeah, I like Troy Melton. I think he can be good for you. But okay, we don't have any other. Don't have anybody else. Any other news? So all right, let's talk a little bit of Pistons. So again, the narrative right now is heavily focused on the Charlotte Hornets game and the fights and ejections and potential suspensions that are looming. That I'm sure will be coming within the next couple of days. Probably, the thing is, the Pistons, I believe, only have one more game until the All-Star break. It would make sense if the league wanted to even just hold off on suspending until after the All-Star break. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, hold on. If you're saying that they're suspension worthy, why are you letting them play against the Toronto Raptors? Like, that seems, if I'm a Raptors fan, I'm pissed about that because obviously the Pistons are better with Jalen Duren than without Jalen Duren and with Isaiah Stewart. With all that being said, I wanted to focus a little bit of my attention on the trade deadline as a whole because obviously that was the big news last week was that the Pistons were largely pretty quiet at the trade deadline. The only thing they did was trade Jaden Ivey for Kevin Huerter, who, look, in the short term, Kevin Huerter is really not logging a whole lot of minutes, and he's not really doing much with those minutes either. I'm sure that will kind of charge up. I remember Dennis Schroeder. It wasn't like he was immediately putting in big time and getting big shots for you. But I do have some thoughts on the trade deadline as a whole and why I think it's actually not that bad what the Pistons ended up doing. So first thing I want to say is that Michael Porter Jr. Was not traded. So obviously he was not seen as an attractive asset to most teams. And furthermore, not seen as an attractive asset to winning teams. Now, that could be that the Brooklyn Nets just were asking for too much, or that they actually weren't interested in trading him and wanted to build around him. But MPJ was not seen as a attractive player for most teams, which is funny because, according to much of the Pistons fans and media, MPJ was this perfect player who everybody was going to get and watch. He's going to go out and be traded. And, well, no, he's actually just going to be stuck on a very bad Brooklyn Nets team. The strength for Detroit, I think, in this deadline is that the Knicks were pretty much quiet as well. They didn't do anything of substance. And the Celtics, they bring in Vucevic, who is going to make them better, but they still don't have Jason Tatum, and they might not have him for the rest of the year. And given he's not a replacement for Tatum, Vucevic does not suddenly make them way better than the Pistons. I just don't think so. If anything, it puts them closer to the Pistons level, but no, he's not a needle mover in the same way, I don't think. And the other thing that I found kind of interesting about this trade deadline is that the teams that made the big splash moves, the splashy move, the teams that went all in, quote unquote, were teams that are not really contenders. Like the Wizards, they traded for Trae Young and Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, who, by the way, is done for the year. I remember early on in the year when people were saying, well, the Pistons were going to try to trade for Anthony Davis, which I hated. I would have hated if they traded for Anthony Davis because I hate Anthony Davis, and I don't think he can ever stay healthy. But obviously, he wasn't able to stay healthy in Washington. I don't think he played a single game in a Washington uniform. They just immediately shut him down. The other team that made some moves at the deadline were the Hornets. They I believe, I'm blanking on the name of the player that they traded for. But they made a move, and that also was like, okay, well, the Hornets, I think they're currently on the outside looking in, so I don't really care what they do. And the Jazz, I can someone explain to me the Jaren Jackson trade like I'm 5? Like, the Jazz are terrible, and they go out and they trade future assets for Jaren Jackson. Good player, even great player. I like Jaren Jackson, but why are they the team that trade for them? All of this made me think is, okay, this was not a buyer's market. This was, if anything, this was a seller's market. This was not a time where the big time contenders were going out and trading punches for who they wanted. And to be fair, we really haven't had trade deadlines like that in a very long time. Most of the trade deadlines that I've been around have been pretty mediocre. I mean, obviously last year with the Luka Doncic trade, that was its own thing, but that was like a pure ineptitude. That frankly, the league should have stepped in, but they didn't. Anyway, that's a discussion for a different day. And ultimately, for me, the blowout win against the Knicks just this past Friday, and then the win on the road against the Hornets, this to me proved that the Pistons are the best team out of the East, and it's not that close. The closest team you get is maybe Boston, but the Knicks are not at the Pistons level. They're not tough. They can't score on our defense. They're just not good enough. They're just not. And they didn't get better. If anything, the Pistons got better because Jaden Ivey was doing nothing for them, and Kevin Huerter at least has some playoff experience and offers that and more size and probably better defense than Jaden Ivey. So the Pistons will almost certainly make the conference finals this year. If all goes well, short of major injuries or major suspensions, obviously with the fights with Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, they will go ahead and probably find their way in the Eastern Conference Finals. With all of that said as well, what I really like is that Langdon and company seem to want to evaluate what this team looks like in the playoffs and then in the offseason address said needs. Because what that tells me is two things. Number one, Trajan Langdon is not going to just make a move to make a move. That would just be stupid. And he's also going to let his guys show him what they're capable of without bringing in outside help. Because sometimes when you can bring in outside help, and especially if you're like trading away young players, like if they went out and they said, all right, Tobias Harris, Asar Thompson, and Ron Holland, you're gone. We're bringing in Michael Porter Jr. Well, the message that sends is, oh, okay, so you don't even care about our team cohesion? You didn't even care about our culture? You didn't even care about defense? Okay, well, now we've lost our mojo. So there's that. And I would just much rather have this approach than the, craziness where you might make a headline, but you overall just underperform but what's the phrase I'm looking for? Underdeliver, oversell but underdeliver. That's just that nobody's going to be happy about that. And with that, I also wanted to point this out. The Pistons last night got into a bit of a fight. They got into a bit of a scuffle. And there's a lot of what I would say is pearl clutching going on amongst some in the media or in some Pistons fan circles about, oh my gosh, this fighting, it's getting out of hand. Isaiah Stewart, what are you doing? Why are you getting... Would you please? I mean, would you please? I was alive when the Malice of the Palace happened. Now, was that good? It wasn't good to fight fans. No. But would you please? With Jalen Duren and Diabate getting into a shoving match and swinging at each other like, little kids, nothing was going to happen. Nobody got curb stomped. Okay. And Isaiah Stewart going in and beating the heck out of Miles Bridges. Frankly, I'm not really going to feel bad for a guy who beats up on his kid and on his girlfriend, to be honest. Sorry. I know that it's going to hurt when Isaiah Stewart's out for a few games, but I don't really care that he beat up a domestic abuser who shouldn't be in the league. Sorry. I just don't care. And if you're going to sit here and say, oh my gosh, he needs to know better. Oh my gosh, we're going to have a reputation. Man, everybody talks about how great the bad boys were, but anytime the Pistons try to act like the bad boys, everybody grabs their pearls. Everybody is like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? Why don't we win the right way? Every time the Pistons have been good, they have been an aggressive and a physical team that sometimes will get under a team's skin so bad that they want to fight them. And that's how we win. Like, in a way, we won 2 championships doing that with the bad boys. We almost won 2 championships doing something similar with the going to work Pistons. This is just Detroit Pistons identity. Whether you like it or not, the Pistons are never going to be the Boston Celtics, where they, quote unquote, win the right way. Or the Lakers, where it's showtime and you get your superstars. They're never going to be that because the league doesn't want them to be that. And they're not built that way. So, yeah, I'm not happy that Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren potentially are both going to get suspended. Not happy about it. But if I had to choose between being the Charlotte Hornets or being the Detroit Pistons, where you have a team that is, trying to be a fake tough guy in Charlotte, and then they end up getting their, behind kicked all night because they can't handle the heat. I would much rather be the kind of team that gets your opponent fired up and makes them hate you, gets in their heads, gets them off their game. Charlotte was coming off of a very long winning streak, and we just broke them. Like, on that, their coach ran out like a chicken with his head cut off because of a charging foul, which frankly was not any more egregious than most fouls in the NBA. So I just don't. All these people who, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of Isaiah Stewart. His antics are too much. How dare he what? Stand up for his teammate because Miles Bridges wanted to play Rock'em Sock'em Robots? How dare he what? Play defense at a high level, earning him Defensive Player of the Month, and being one of the more underrated players in the league because the only thing that people think he does is get into fistfights? Who cares? Truly. Like, if you go up to a Pistons fan and he is truly like scarred or petrified by the fact that there was a fight that lasted like 3 minutes of just running around and yelling and screaming, hold me back, hold me back. It's basketball. It's physical. It's Detroit basketball. It's been like this every time we've been good. And if you don't like it, well, then maybe this isn't the team for you. Or maybe this isn't the sport for you. I don't know. Maybe you can go watch badminton. You can watch the Olympics. There's not going to be any fighting in the Olympics. Maybe there will. Maybe I'd watch if there was fighting. But I can't. I cannot get upset about it. I like Isaiah Stewart. I like Jalen Duren. I like that they get under teams' skin. I like that other teams get irrationally upset about them being physical because they think that they're tougher than them or that they can get them into a fight. Because you know what that tells me? That tells me we're in their heads. And when we're in their heads, we've already won. That's what Bill Laimbeer used to say. Could you imagine? Could you imagine what this social media age would do if they saw Bill Laimbeer chokeslam Larry Bird? You know what I would, if I were around when that happened, I would have stood up in the arena and applauded. I would have applauded that one of the NBA's golden boys finally got a little bit of a taste of his own medicine. So I'm enjoying this. The Pistons are the best team in the East. And they're doing it the same way that they've always done it when they win championships. And they seriously are one of the NBA Finals contenders. But the rest of the NBA doesn't want to admit it because all they think is Isaiah Stewart likes to fight people and Kate Cunningham is overrated or something. I don't know. Fine. Think that about us. Continue to think that about us. That's all that every time the Pistons are good, they've thought that about them. We'll just go out and win more games. So, fun stuff. All right, let's talk about some more. Let's talk about some of the chat here. A lot to talk about. This is a great show, wasn't it? I want to know the suspension news now just because I want to know if Duren will be available for tomorrow. This is my point, but again, I mentioned it. Going into the All-Star break, man, it's kind of weird, right? Because, like, they only got the one game, and then they're in the break. Like, are you really going to say, okay, we'll give you 10 games, you get this one game, then everyone gets a break, and then you get 9 more games? That just feels weird. Paul Reed is not bad, but I want to know if Tolu Smith has to be called since no Duren and Beef. Excuse me, and Tolu Smith is basically the 4 option. Here's another thing I want to say about Paul Reed. Watching that game last night, Paul Reed's got to be the best 3rd option center in the league. I'm serious. Every single time that guy has to come in, he balls out. Like, completely. Last night, he was playing amazingly. I remember when he came in that Rockets game, he played like a demon. He's fantastic as a 3rd option. Truly. He is amazing. The fact that Philadelphia just left him for us, truly, one of the great pickups by Trajan Langdon and one of the great coaching jobs by JB Bickerstaff to utilize his strengths because he has been excellent for us. Cleveland trading for Harden is the only true all-in move by a contender. Yeah, but this just, to me, shows me that they're not a contender because if you trade for James Harden in the year of our Lord, 2026, you're not a contender. James Harden is an unserious player. He is a casuals all-in move. I guarantee you they're not going to win with him. I guarantee you. They'll make the playoffs, sure. But it'll probably cost them. I guarantee you. I've seen it a million times. Since he left, even when he was on Houston, I saw it. So, what were the Wizards doing if they aren't close to competing? And on top of that, AD is instantly hurt. I don't know. I don't know why they traded for Trae Young. I don't know why they traded for Anthony Davis. I don't know why they're making any trades that aren't just selling pieces off because they're terrible. And I don't understand. Blowing out the Knicks. Also, the Pistons were caught overlooking the Wizards. Absolutely. On short notice, unfortunately, that was a tough loss. But yeah, I mean, they were definitely overlooking Washington. I think that, and Washington was just making every single shot. Like it was not a game that most teams would actually win, to be perfectly honest. Like they were shooting like 50% from 3 or something crazy. I only see Durant getting one game as being an instigator. Besides starting it, he mostly walked away when he wasn't being doubled. Also, him being an all-star might help. Very true. Being suspended going into the all-star break as an all-star is just a pickle for the NBA and the PA. Yes, of course. I will say no one was surprised by B-Stu running out of the court. Everyone and their mother saw that coming, and I love Stu for it. He has heart and passion for this team and his teammates. That is worth a lot. Absolutely. He is, he's, what they would call in hockey the enforcer. Cade Cunningham is the style points. Jalen Duren is, the physical specimen. Tobias Harris is the vet leader. And Isaiah Stewart is the enforcer. He's the guy that, hey, how bad do you want that basket? How bad do you want to stop this slam dunk? He's that kind of a guy. I don't know how many times I say this. Defensive basketball is Detroit basketball. And being defensive means being aggressive. Both the bad boys and going to work both showed it. Absolutely. This is about the Olympics. USA and Canada hockey teams. Hey, maybe that would make the Olympics watchable. This is a chance to find the bandwagon pass since any Pistons fans know all this and has happened before. I know. This is what amazes me. It's like as if people are just totally oblivious of history. I don't. Do people not remember 2004 or 1989 and 90? Those were not teams that, didn't get themselves into physical altercations. They always got into physical altercations. Yesterday, I had people telling me the Pistons are boxing merchants and will never stand up to the Spurs or the Thunder. I just think that's ridiculous. And watch, we'll beat one or both of those teams. We do have them coming up after the All-Star break. And people still won't give us credit. I'm old enough to remember when the Pistons couldn't beat a West Coast team or Western Conference team. Flash forward, Pistons beat the Lakers. Pistons beat the Nuggets twice, once on the road. You can't please these people. They have a set narrative in their mind about the Pistons, and that's fine. I don't expect you to watch a lot of Pistons games. They're not necessarily on TV all the time. But Cade Cunningham is an MVP candidate. And Jalen Duren is one of the best centers in the league. To just pretend as though all we're doing is getting into fights is just ridiculous. And Cleveland wins their first round playoff series. After that, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe they win the first round. I guess James Harden can win the first round. He's done that before. Pistons got both OKC and San Antonio real soon, and Cleveland had a 3-game stretch at home. Yeah, and I mean, I do think, outside of maybe the Thunder, I think the Pistons are, the Thunder are their own team, but, I'm sorry. The Thunder are a very soft team. They draw a lot of fouls. They do. And it's not, I'm not one of these people who say they're just free throw merchants, because I think that's just a weak point. But they're not nearly as physical as the Pistons. I think it could be in for a rude awakening if the Pistons defense forces them out of their normal, comfort zone. How bad do you want those free throws? In a way, they do get a lot of free throws, but how bad do you want them? Do you want them bad enough that you're, getting knocked down to the floor after the play? We'll see. It's because the Pistons are way better than expected, kind of like the Seahawks from this past NFL season. That's true. But I think there was probably not probably. There certainly was not a kind of antagonistic feel about the Seahawks. It's kind of like, people who are like, oh, the Seahawks are actually pretty good. And, maybe they're a Super Bowl contender. And they ended up actually being that. With the Pistons, it's as if, the fact that they're good is an offense. The Pistons did something wrong by being the best team in the East. Everyone expected the Knicks to run away with the East this year, and said the Pistons have been running the Knicks out of the stadium in their 2 matches. That's what's crazy, is that it's not just that the Pistons are beating the Knicks. They are knocking them on the floor and pummeling them into the ground. 2 games where Jalen Brunson has been benched in the fourth quarter, not because they're winning, because they're losing so bad that it is not worth having their best player on the floor to risk getting hurt in a game that is lost. So Look, I think a lot of people, and especially Knicks fans, they're bitter, And look, I understand being bitter when your team hasn't won a championship since, Richard Nixon or Gerald Ford was president. I understand that's tough for especially New York sports fans who are allegedly so much tougher on their teams. Then that's why they can expect to have such quality teams as the New York Jets and the New York Mets and the New York Knicks. Because they expect nothing more than their team to win, and the Islanders and the Rangers and yeah, it seems like basically they got the Giants, who are also terrible, and the Yankees, who also haven't won a World Series since Derek Jeter retired. Just, because the New York teams are so tough. Players wouldn't be able to survive the New York fans and the New York media. They're so much tougher, right? Yeah, they're so tough that their city has not had a championship since Obama was president. That's how tough they are. Shout out Panarin, Artemi Panarin getting traded to the Kings for nothing. Margin of victory in both games was 69 points. That is amazing. In a way, there's a part of me that kind of wants the Knicks in the playoffs. Now, I don't typically get into the we want X team. I play whoever's in front of you. I don't care who we play. I think we're capable of beating whoever. But it would just be so delicious to just rip those salty little Knicks fans' hearts out after what they pulled last year. New York has 7 teams, counting the Devils, since both the Jets and Giants are in New York, and they haven't won anything since 2009. No, well, the Giants won in 2012. The Giants won the Super Bowl in 2012. So a little off, but yes. Oh, can we get Spike Lee in the LCA sad shot? Can we get Spike Lee eating a sad Little Caesars pizza? Can we get that? That would be awesome. This is what gets me, though, this is a different rant, is like I can't stand when some of these people, especially from out of town, will say stuff like, oh, you Detroit players and Detroit fans, they would never be able to survive New York or Philadelphia. They're so much tougher. It's like, I'm sorry, but how exactly are these fans, quote unquote, so much tougher? Like what? Because they are more irrational. They are more stupid and aggressive. Like, yeah, sure, but does that actually result in anything tangible? The only Philadelphia team that has had any sort of success is the Eagles, and they have done so in some ways even in spite of themselves. And as far as New York goes, we already went over them. They haven't won anything in over a decade. I don't it's just so ridiculous. Detroit is one of the best sports cities in the country. And we're acting like, oh my gosh, why aren't we? You guys are so soft. New York is so much tougher. It's just, shut up. This is just so ridiculous. This is literally the equivalent of my dad could beat up your dad. This is it is the most inconsequential, irrelevant factor. I don't know if these people know this, but New York fans and Philly fans, they fall in love with their own players too. They do. They like players that might not actually be all that good, and that's okay, because that's what fans do. And I don't think it's really all that much better that you have fans that either maybe irrationally like a player that they shouldn't have to like as much versus hate a player that they definitely shouldn't hate. If anything, it's probably better to like someone a little too much than hate them way more than they deserve. So, I mean, seriously, after Garrett Cole had that terrible outing against Boston a few years ago, I guarantee you there were some idiot Yankees fans saying, we got to trade this guy. But hey, at least they care more, right? And that caring has resulted in many more championships, right? I'm sure if we include championships that were neither televised nor capable of being televised, then yes, then it results in more championships. That's true. Drift fans aren't throwing snowballs at Santa or have jail in the stadium. Who is it that has the jail in the stadium? Is that the Eagles? Is that the Eagles that have a jail in the stadium? Every time, it's just one of my pet peeves is when people say, oh, this would never fly in Boston, or this would never fly in New York. What this way that they're dealing with the team. It's like, what the hell are you even talking? First of all, not only does it fly, it flies everywhere. Like, it's not that people act as though Detroit teams are run so like unlike any other team. It's so like it's so nearsighted. It's so myopic. Like you are quite literally you are losing the forest for the trees. Maybe not quite literally. You know what I mean. I'm being emphatic. So anyway, on that uplifting note, that's the end of the show. So next week, honestly, I don't really know what we're going to talk about. So at this point, I'm just kind of hoping that some major breaking news happens. Otherwise, we're going to have some shorter shows because it's kind of a bad time to be a sports fan in a way because, tomorrow night will be the final game for the Pistons before the All-Star break. And then we'll have nothing but college basketball for like 2 weeks. And then we'll be back to NHL and NBA. We should be close to the NHL trade deadline. But then we'll get some baseball. It's just kind of weird. But at the very least, I'm glad that football is over in as much as I am a little footballed out. Talk about NASCAR. Come on, man. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. NASCAR, I'm sure a lot of people like NASCAR, but I don't care. I don't care about NASCAR. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be mean to you, Mr. X. I can see you have the NASCAR profile picture. I'm sorry. I don't know anything about it. They drive fast. I hope the fastest car wins. Or you know what? I hope the slowest car wins. That's what I want. I'm rooting for the underdog. Anyway, that's it for the show. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like and the subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be back again next Tuesday night, breaking it all down. We'll have a couple of clips out from this show uploaded tomorrow and Thursday. And that's all I got. So have a great rest of your night, everybody, and I'll talk to you next Tuesday. See ya. Bye-bye. See you later.